welcome to the Hopeful Humanist Cafe. I am Woodrow II. As you know, my dad is a Hopeful Humanist. He has a little clip from his friend Captain Jack that has a t-shirt idea and some thoughts about routine. But I should get going now because my dad doesn't want me to hear some of the words in the conversations. But Jack, what are some of your ideas? Peace out.
Now that I'm in week 2, it's sort of, falling into routine. And, I don't know if it's the older I get or what, I like routine. I don't think I used to be a creature of routine, but I kind of am now. I think it's age, man. I think it's because, the older you get, the more you realize life's too short for bullshit. So establishing a routine is an efficient way to do things, right? Just like wearing uniforms, right? It's efficient. I don't put hardly any stock in what I wear. I almost have uniforms to work. I have not quite literally uniforms, but I have polo shirts. There's about 6 of them, that are all the same but different colors. And then I have chino pants, sort of like in between dress and casual pants. Again, they're all pretty much the same, just different colors. So I go in there and I grab a shirt and a pants, done. Because why waste time, right? And yeah, when I was younger, I would be driving all over God's creation. Every semester would be a new routine, and that's fine when you're younger, until you realize all that, moving around and difference, it takes energy and time, right? Because at the end of the day, you still have to center yourself. And so the good thing about routine is you know how to expect, you know what to expect, and therefore you can organize your time more efficiently, So I think that's the value of routine. With wisdom comes also the realization that, time is fleeting and precious, right? Tempus fugit. And so why waste it on a lot of spinning your wheels?
What an intro. I had some help there from my oldest son, Woodrow II. He's identified that that's going to be a cyber handle that he's going to enjoy. And also from a lifelong friend, spiritual brother, Captain Jack. So this is the Hopeful Humanist Cafe, and I am Steve the Hopeful Humanist, and you're joining me for a evening walk here in Cape Town of Southern Ontario. It's -3, feels like -7. The snow's coming down, and I thought I'd like to do something different, something unconventional. So I'm doing a literal walk and talk outside, and I got my Zoom H1 handy recorder. Don't have my lapel mic. I got my windshield on the recorder, so it looks like I'm carrying around a microphone. And the idea between the Hopeful Humanist Cafe is to explore helpful resources, hopefully that are free, and to give us some activities, some things to think about that could, just get our creative juices flowing. And so I had this opportunity where my son wanted to do the intro. His initial cyber handle, I think, was he was going with James, but he's decided Woodrow II is a little bit more exciting and akin to the persona that he would like to creatively create. Captain Jack, I guess I should do some explaining. So Captain Jack, this idea comes from high school. In high school, my good friend, lifelong spiritual brother, Captain Jack, had a column in the local high school newspaper, our high school, and it was called this high school called St. Jerome's High School. And we had a paper, and my friend Captain Jack was a part of the team that ran the newspaper, and he had a column excitingly called Captain Jack's Seaworthy Suggestions. He has no real abilities in the aquatic world, but it was just something that I think that it was playful and it stuck. And so when he sent me the little clip that you listen to of a file, of a larger file in terms of our weekly communications, we send some voice files to one another. And when I was listening to that part of the file that he sent me, that one clip, it just really resonated with me. Without knowing it, inadvertently, he gave us an idea for a t-shirt, a novel t-shirt idea. Life's too short for, and I'll leave the particular language that he used for him. So yeah, life's too short for BS. And that just really resonated with me in terms of the whole "you are what you eat" kind of thinking that goes beyond just food. We go to work, we come home, we do the business of life, chores, errands, and then then we sit down, and then things seem to pour into us, and I've just become really mindful lately about I've just been trying to be more conscious about the things that it is, the things that I'm putting into me, in terms of TV shows, the kind of books that I read, websites that I might visit. And I really do think that some of my attention could be redirected to healthier, more optimistic and positive directions. And then he gave this idea about schedules and the importance for schedules, and I thought that they really fit together. This idea that life's too short for BS. It's just too short to invest in things that really don't enhance our lived experience, that don't contribute meaning, that don't help us solidify and nurture important relationships, that help us have good mental and physical health. That what's something that we might be able to do to make sure that we don't get derailed? And this idea of a schedule came up, and he proposed, as you heard in the clip, a thought about how you might prepare yourself for getting ready for a day of work in terms of work attire. And so I went online and I became really curious about quotes on schedules. And I came up with two that I found really interesting. And so I thought, what? It would be nice to do on this episode something fairly simple, a quote off. Now, which one of these quotes do you think seems to resonate a little more true in terms of the benefits that one might experience if we create a routine or implement a schedule in our lives? So I'm just a little distance from the house because I'm kind of walking around my street here. I hope that the wind is not so overpowering that you can't hear my voice, because if that's the case, then I'm going to have to redo this episode. But I went to Goodreads and I got two quotes. I'm going to very shortly, read those two quotes and invite you, the listener, to think about what quote seems to resonate more with you in terms of this idea of schedules. One is a very brief, concise quote, and another one has a little bit more length to it. And then after that, I'll share a thought. And then I'll end with a novel first sentence suggestion from my friend and another friend and spiritual brother, Danielson. And I probably won't give much comment on his novel first sentence. I will say that he suggested it was quite a challenge to take some time and to craft something for me. And he was wondering, what you need to include in a novel first sentence in terms of a book that you'd like to write, but realistically probably will never write. Does everything need to be included in that first sentence in terms of suggesting the grandeur, the terrain of the novel, or could it just be simply suggestive of something that then would eventually grow and include some other things that would not be a part of that first sentence, novel first sentence. Okay, so let's get to the quotes here on schedules. So the first quote comes to us from Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White. My hour for tea is 5:30, and my buttered toast waits for nobody. So that's the first consideration for our quote off. I've got a light dusting of snow all over my windshield on my microphone here. The second quote is by Annie Dillard, The Writing Life. How do we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. What we do with this hour and that one is what we are doing. A schedule defends from chaos and whim. It is a net for catching days. It is a scaffolding on which a worker can stand and labor with both hands at sections of time. A schedule is a mock-up of reason and order, willed, faked, and so brought into being. It is a peace and a haven set into the wreck of time. It's a lifeboat on which you find yourself, decades later, still living. So I guess the idea behind a quote off would be, which two of those quotes seems to resonate or strike a chord more truly than the other. And so, just to give a moment of pause, and then I'll share a thought. You can find these quotes at Goodread, and I'll provide the link. Well, often in life we're given situations where people like to craft either or scenarios. Either, in terms of this quote off, the first quote is the one that resonates more truly, or it's the second. And I'm going to suggest that I think the two quotes actually work hand in hand. Initially, I was drawn to Anne Dillard's quote because there's a whole bunch in there, but just this idea of it's a lifeboat. It defends against chaos and whim, right? Like if we do not want to waste our time, if life is too short for BS, we might want to create some routines that are significant, meaningful, that can keep us on track and provide that scaffolding. I had a nice discussion with my mom about these two quotes, and I asked her which one seemed to resonate more for her, And her first reaction was, well, depending on what stage in life a person's at, for instance, retirement, perhaps in this case, and in terms of the various changing demands of life, the one thing that the second quote seems to be missing is this the room for being flexible. You almost have a sense of a person perhaps white knuckling it and holding dearly onto this schedule, this routine, this way, and just a lack of openness, a lack of tolerance for going off track a little bit when perhaps it might be necessary. So that definitely got my attention. So initially I was actually drawn to the Ann Dillard, but I think they definitely complement each other. But the Wilkie Collins, I think in the end, resonated more strongly. But as I said, I believe that they work in tandem with one another. I think the importance of the Wilkie Collins is that there are some things that it seems like make life really meaningful, and that if we get caught up in the machinations of life, and we're kind of absorbed by our work, right? Because in the West, it's kind of like the cult of work is that background that we exist within. That there are times when we think, well, if I don't do it now, I can do it later, right? We can think about that in terms of playing with our kids, or going on a date night with our spouse or partner. And it seems like there could be a real danger that we don't actually nurture and feed the fire of things that are important and meaningful to us. And in this Wilkie Collins quote, this my hour for tea is 5:30. So it's like, what? There are going to be things that pull me in different directions, and I will have to attend to them. But you know what? Every day, I'm going to make sure there's a space for me, and my buttered toast waits for nobody. So it's like, I'm going to go, and you're welcome to join me. But if you don't, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to have my tea because it's a priority to me. And the other thing I get a sense of when I'm looking at this quote is you don't sense that this is something a person is doing for hours and hours upon hours. It's something that is set aside. It's deliberate. It's meaningful. But it's not about a 4-hour commitment per se. It's about just making space for slowing down and making sure we don't lose sight of the things that are really important for us. So yeah, I'm hoping that maybe some thoughts might have been stirred for you in terms of this quote off. I kind of initially fashioned it as an either or, but I think we don't have to go in that direction, and that's my creative solution to the either or dilemma I initially posed. So we're going to look now at another contribution to this episode from another one of my friends, Danielson, and he offered me a novel first sentence to share. And his novel first sentence goes as such: "The mirror conjured a new testimony of age, evidence of a deeper parenthesized mouth that launched a regret-flavored reverie as he scrutinized his disturbingly unrecognizable face." So I'm going to pause there, and I think I'm going to choose to not comment at this point. I think it might be a thread that I'll pick up at another time in a future episode, just to kind of honor the fact that some time, energy, and creativity went into Danielson's creation of this novel, First Sentence. But I mean, I don't hesitate to offer a response because I don't have a response. No. I think that there are some initial feelings, reactions that I have, but I just like to leave that as something that speaks for itself at this point. So I'm hoping that this might be something I'll be able to continue to do in future episodes. Captain Jack, my good friend, and Danielson, they've both offered me their cyber handles and are open to future clippings and sharings in terms of offerings of their experiences, and I'm grateful to that. And my son, Woodrow II. Yeah, and that's a curious thing. I was wondering why not Woodrow the First, but I think there was something playfully suggested about Woodrow II that he decided to go with. So I'd like to thank you for joining me at the Hopeful Humanist Cafe for this quote off on ideas from two different authors about schedules. And I'd like to thank this collective involvement and contribution from Woodrow II, Captain Jack, and Danielson. And I do look forward to some more seaworthy suggestions. So thank you for joining me on this cold, brisk evening. -3 feels like -9. And I look forward to our next conversation. Peace and take care.